Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you have found us on 8779er. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, Patricia and David. We've done pretty well this season, actually. We haven't had to move too much at all, really, but there is very, very loud radar here on 8752. So hopefully this one will work all right. It's easier for me to come here than going to 82907, which will be our next option because I have to adjust the antenna for 8297. I have a very fancy antenna. It's a vertical antenna on top of our roof because we don't have any land much around us. And inside what looks like just a plain old ordinary whip antenna is a little copper foil thing on a stepper motor, and I raise and lower this copper inside the whip antenna depending on the frequency that I need, and I have previously worked out what I need on this. So there we are. That's what we're working with this morning. And I don't see anybody on streaming, and most of you are on your way or patiently waiting or not so patiently waiting. We know there is a big group in the Fiji area, western part of Fiji, wanting to go north. Not very wonderful weather at the moment, but we do know you're there, and we also know that there are, well, at least one boat, Good Morning to Eagle's Wings, down the bottom of Newcastle waiting to come to New Zealand, as are others in Fiji waiting to come to New Zealand. So, well, hopefully I'll wait and listen to David. It doesn't look very good from my view of things, but anyway, we'll wait and see. Just a bit of news for those that are following boats that have headed south. Pilgrim are only a day away, really, from arriving. They're doing well, but they'll enter a bit of rain to wash the boat down. So they're about 170 miles from Ninepin. I'm not sure that for those of you who are not New Zealanders know what we're talking about with Ninepin, but it's the the big rock that's in the sort of the entrance, close to the entrance of Opua, and it looks like a bowling pin, I suppose, so it's called Ninepin. Four Seasons are way to the west of that. They're heading down the North Island to Picton, and a good thing too, because if they'd gone into Opua, they'd probably be there for a while with the weather that's coming up. And that's about it for the boats that we know of. Mazu, of course, is in port. Now that's great. And the other ones are nowhere near any of you guys. What I'll do now is I will just go through some news. There's actually a little bit of news around today, which is good. I'll tell you what our weather's like first. 18, and that is not an error. 18 degrees, so pretty nice weather here. 1025.2 rising on the bar with this nice anticyclone. Pretty much no wind around, 2 knots from the southwest, although our meter said southeast, but you can see that there's virtually nothing down here. Although, interestingly enough, Pilgrim, they have got a little bit of wind up where they are. They're at 32.23, and they've got east to east to southeast under 10, but just hiked up a little bit to 10 to 12. That was overnight. So they're actually sailing 70% cloud cover up here. We've only got about 25% cloud cover here. And their bar is less, of course, 1018. Ours is 1025.2. So there is a bit of wind between us. I know Pilgrim's barometer is pretty accurate. So a bit of wind in between, which will be helpful for sailing in. I haven't heard that Anahata arrived, but I presume David did arrive yesterday. Okay, having talked about our lovely weather, it's pretty grim over there in California. There's 3 major fires there, and the death toll is now 44. The pictures from the one that's called the Camp Fire, that's where Paradise was, the town of Paradise, just shells of cars, crumbling houses, just nothing left. Absolutely terrible. 52,000 people have been evacuated from that particular area. 7,000 homes have been destroyed, and none of the fires appear to have been from human beings being ridiculous. Most of them seem to have been electrical things. Transmission line outages were reported in both, or 2 of the areas anyway. But boy, they have burned an area bigger than Rhode Island. Not that we hear much. How big is Rhode Island? It's not very big, is it? One of the smallest states in America. But anyway, that's a lot of just destruction. So not very wonderful news from over there. But good news, sort of, from the UK. Finally, after 2 years of wrangling after the big vote, Britain and the EU have, in fact, reached a Brexit deal.
I don't believe it.
That's absolutely amazing. No details have been released yet, but presumably they are all accepting or happy or something with the Irish border problem and the trade issues which were sort of holding things up there. So at least they can move on now. It'll be interesting to see the detail. Mrs. May, it was probably, she had a picture in there looking very relieved, but she will have to work it through Parliament now, and that will be a bit of a challenge for her, but I think she's up to it. Amazon, I'm not sure that I've even mentioned this because they were looking to have another headquarters in addition to the Seattle one. Things were just getting too big for Seattle and what they could cope with staff-wise and people space-wise there, and they went out to the rest of the country to look for another headquarters. They then decided to pick 2 new headquarters. Not sure what you would call that. What's that animal with the several heads?
Several heads.
Yeah, something. My brain's not working. But anyway, well, if you think of a headquarters, you only think of one head. Now there's 3 heads, so I'm sure that there was a name for that, but I don't know if it's off the
Politician.
Politician, yes, probably. Anyway, they have chosen Long Island, New York, and Northern Virginia. Now, David is from Long Island, so this is news for him, but they had to pick places where there were sufficient qualified people to work at them. You know, they're looking at about 50,000 people at each of these places. Of course, it's good and bad news for these places. Oh, the other one was Arlington and West Northern Virginia. But, you know, it puts up house prices, creates a lot of jobs, so that's why people wanted it there. So Amazon, and they're also going to be expanding their Nashville storage facilities. So a lot of action for Amazon. In Arizona, this is more bad news for Mr. Trump. A bisexual woman has won the position for the Democrats in the Senate there. There were 2 women vying for the position, and this woman, I suppose you'd call her a woman if she's bisexual. She looks like a woman. Anyway, she's won. She's more of an independent, but she is definitely a Democrat, so he's lost another one there. And they're still arguing in a couple of other places, so there's still stuff to sort out there. Talking about arguing, Israel and Palestine militants in Gaza are at it again. Israel botched a special forces raid on Sunday night. They don't often botch those. But anyway, they did, so that has led to a lot of stuff coming out of Gaza towards Israel, so they're hammer and tongs again. And going to North Korea now, satellite image has shown North Korea is maintaining a dozen missile launch sites up in the mountains. They showed the picture of it. It's really hard for someone like me, to know what they're looking at. But anyway, they're evidently quite definite that they are launch sites, and so they're a bit upset about the agreements. But let's face it, they did agree on nuclear things. They didn't say that they were going to stop missile testing. Did they? I don't know. I can't remember. I never believe anything that these people say anyway, so I didn't take too much notice. All right, those of you in Fiji, and I see from Citrus Tart, it's raining cats and dogs, so a lot of runoff, and David did mention that, a hydra, that's the word, a hydra is the one with multiple heads. Thank you for that. Yeah, I knew there was a word there, thank you. Election day in Fiji today. It's Bainimarama facing off against Rabuka. The 2 of them are good ex-coup leaders. The predictions are that Bainimarama, who has led a stable government for about 13 years, will win, but who knows? It is elections, and that's what the mystery is all about. But he has done a few things that have satisfied people. No school fees, which he should come over here. no school fees, and it's a very he's removed the ethnic quotas from Parliament, so everybody in Fiji is a Fijian, regardless of whether you're Indian or an other or a true Fijian. So anyway, that's what's happening in Fiji today. One of the big things is the poverty levels. Fijian workers, the average worker, or the minimum wage is Fijian $2.32 an hour, which is only $1.62. So, boy, that's not much to keep people developing themselves. So, if you have any Fijian workers, you might like to bolster that wage a little bit. But anyway, it's all go there today in Fiji. I wonder if that rain that's reported is going to affect things. But hopefully everybody will get out and vote. All right, I am looking at the clock now. It's on the hour, and I know that the propagation changes a bit. So there is quite a lot to go through, particularly for those folk who want to leave the rain of Fiji. So we'll pass the microphone to David and take any questions after. Here he is.
Okay, good morning. I think we're going to jump to the surface forecasts, as really not much has changed in the upper levels, and we covered that in enough detail yesterday, I believe. So if you are paying attention and have interest in those levels, then hopefully that will satisfy you. We'll touch base tomorrow. Our big high over New Zealand is pretty much as we forecast. There are two centers. One is west of New Zealand, the other one is east of New Zealand. Now, the central pressure of both is pretty close to 1030 millibars, so we're dealing with a strong anticyclone. Now, as the flows from each of these high centers meet, the small low that's formed at that point sits, well, it sits almost over Gulf Harbor Radio. You wouldn't know it right now because we've got some blue sky, but this is the area where the two opposing flows are coming together. And when that happens, there is a trough that's going to form, and that's going to extend almost due north. And then that will split into two features just at the tip of the North Island. Now, one turns into a cold front, and it arcs off to the east. The other one arcs west, and does so as a quasi-stationary front. Quasi-stationary meaning a front that's moving less than 5 knots, so very, very slow. This is causing a wee bit of a problem for a few of the yachts that are coming down the west coast to the Picton area. But I believe that's going to be short-lived for them as the highs, as they drift east, the winds will back. So whereas now they have headwinds, the winds will start to become easterlies, and probably by tonight into tomorrow they'll be northeasterly, and that'll free up the yachts, and they'll be able to sail rather smartly, or maybe not smartly, but they'll be able to sail directly into Picton from there. Now by Thursday, the two high centers are going to merge. The winner is the one center that's left and lying just to the east of Napier. It'll still be strong at about 1030, 1030 millibar. Now, other things are happening on Thursday as well, and Thursday being tomorrow. Now, our old subtropical depression, what's left of it, is going to sit at roughly 29 and 160 west. So that's 29 south and 160 west. It's really a polar dip at that point. I don't see closed isobars. Of more importance, though, tomorrow, our tropical depression, in between a disturbance and a depression, is going to have formed over Fiji, with a second disturbance pretty much over Samoa. So in other words, there is a lot of convective action, folks, and there are going to be quite a few wind direction shifts. Now, En route to New Zealand from Fiji, those few of you that are underway, have been underway now, are the winds for you are not really in a bad direction. Today they're mostly easterly quadrant between 25 and 30 south, especially tomorrow. Now between 27 south and 30 south, we're going to have some pretty fresh winds. I'd say 30 knots are going to prevail, and all of this is going to be within this pair of troughs that I've been talking about. So while the winds stay more or less easterly quadrant, in fact, right through Saturday, because of the troughs, and if you were to look at the satellite image, you would take a deep breath, because there are some very, very heavy-duty clouds that are between Fiji and New Zealand. Now, I'm going to shift right at this moment to the tropics, as the weather up there is also affecting the cruising route. So we have two parallel troughs, as I intimated a minute ago, running from just east of the Solomons southeastward to about 34 south. Now, tropical depression is called TD, Tropical Depression 2F, is still developing, and it's near, at the moment, it's near 5 and 167 east, 167 east. And it's tracking over the Santa Cruz Islands, and then on to another tropical disturbance over the banks. Then the trough continues to Raoul Island, northeast of New Zealand. Now the parallel trough is separated by about 10 degrees. That's the distance between the two, running right alongside the first one that I mentioned. And that one is going to be affecting Fiji, and it runs all the way down to 30 and 175 west. So in other words, the cruising route is a real mess. Trough conditions all throughout the route, plenty of wind, plenty of squalls. Now, finally, we have a third trough that runs from Tokelau. It goes essentially east, a little bit to the north of Samoa, then it goes on to the Southern Cooks, and then on to our old subtropical depression, which is the polar dip that I was talking about. So we've got some pretty wild conditions out there for sure. Now, moving to Tonga, we're not hearing from anyone in Tonga at the moment, so I think everybody has left, and the ones that are still sitting around there, we just haven't heard from. But anyway, one of our troughs is approaching the kingdom, bringing definite cloud and rain over the next 2 days. And like I said, since we're not hearing from anyone, I'm just going to give the winds, I think. So today, by lunch, expect east to east-southeast, about 15 knots or so, and they'll be picking up in the Hapais tonight, getting up to about 20 knots. Tomorrow, northerlies are going to be affecting Nui Tupatapo and may reach Vavau, while easterlies affect the rest of the group. So you can see some directional convergence there supporting the trough. And those winds are about 20 knots, mean winds, and of more importance, trough conditions. So that's your lot for Tonga. Now, Fiji is frankly in for it today, as our active trough is definitely affecting the group. Now, tropical depression 02F is probably going to slide down this trough by tomorrow, maybe tonight into tomorrow. So make sure that you're in a protected anchorage, and make sure you're not close to your neighbor. There is a heavy rain warning still in force for most of the group, and this is issued by Fiji Met, plus a strong wind warning issued by them as well. So expect 20 to 25 knot mean winds east to northeast today and tomorrow. Now, thunderstorms are going to be involved in this, so you can expect heavier gusts, and wind shifts will most likely occur with these thunderstorms, and that's the reason you don't want to be close to your neighbor. So please think very carefully about moving about or thinking about leaving for New Zealand or even leaving north. Now, by Friday, I see south to southwest winds, and Saturday, southerly quadrant winds probably continuing into Tuesday. I hate to say that. So very much hinges on the tropical depression, exactly what it does and where it's going to head. It's not going to develop into anything that will affect New Zealand at this moment, from what I can see, but it is going to affect the islands, and it's going to affect your decisions on when you're going to make your break. Hang on, folks.
Yeah, I just want to check 8752. It's all right. It's still with radar, and I thought people might have lost us. Back to David.
Yep, okay, moving to Vanuatu now. They're escaping the main effects of these parallel troughs, although a band does affect the banks and the northern islands like Santo and Malakula. But the whole series, the two bands themselves, are shifting east a little bit as they maintain the cloud direction from northwest rather to southeast. That's the direction the clouds are going, but the band itself, the bands, are sliding to the east very slightly. Now, like I said, Santo and Malakula are still getting effects of this, but anyhow, that will clear before too long. But scattered cloud does affect the rest of the group. Now, we do have cyclonic wind flow over Vanuatu, and depending upon where you are, you could experience north-northwest to west to southwest to southeast winds. You'll just have to call us if you want more information, as the wind direction is quite erratic based on the situation. So I'll be able to tell you fairly closely what your winds might be, but you could expect them to be pretty much from all over the place. But it's all a function of your exact location. But I don't see any mean winds much over 20 knots, so that's pretty good news. Now, by Thursday and Friday, I think we'll be seeing southeast winds. It'll stabilize by then. So southeast winds by tomorrow, and that'll be in the 15 to 20 knot range. Oh yes, I did get a microwave pass, and just to the northeast of northern Vanuatu, pretty much where the tropical depression is located, I'm picking up winds of 40 to 45 knots. That's east-northeast of the banks, so 40 to 45 knots. So this is no joke. It's quite nasty out there, so you don't want to be anywhere near it for sure if you can avoid it. Okay, over to Newtown now. That's one place that escapes this mess. Imagery does show low cloud in the southern lagoon, but nothing major at all. So today I expect southeast winds around 15, cloudy to partly cloudy in our lagoon area. Tomorrow, south to southeast, I'm afraid, 12 to 15 knots, partly cloudy. And Friday, southeast winds, about 15, and still partly cloudy. Now, conditions, Amity light this morning, southeast at 16, Isle de Tan, or Isle Pines, southeast 11, Loyalty southeast at about 10, Noumea was southeast 21 knots. The temperature there was 22 C. The barometer, for those checking, 1011. Now, I promised you a look at sailing to New Zealand, and things were such a mess last night and this morning, I didn't really bother to take it too far, other than to say that there is no real opportunity that I could see for making a break this coming week through between now and say Tuesday. But what I will do tonight is do another complete look, and I will give you a bit of a report. Part of the problem is we have a number of depressions that are sliding through west to east, and they're coming fairly fast. And so whereas it looks like everything is good for 2 or 3 days, and then suddenly a depression comes through. And while the depression itself may not be a major one, usually the winds behind it become headwinds. And people don't like headwinds. So that's the problem we've got. The other thing is, at the moment, looking at, as an example, tomorrow, those of you that think, well, maybe from Newcal we can go, but if you'll remember, I talked about the southerly quadrant winds, and what's happening is we're getting a polar dip that's north of New Zealand, and that's causing the winds to tweak a bit to become more in the way of headwinds for you. So that's a shame. If that didn't happen, you might have had an opportunity to leave. That's about a 6-day passage if you go, if you sail rather smartly. We do it in 6 days. So if we could do it, you could do it. And that's about it, really. That's all I've got. So tomorrow, I promise you, listen up, and I will give you what I see for the next 10 days or so, and look to see if there's any opportunities. I'll also look for people that want to head north. Now, those of you that are going north, it would be nice to know if you're stopping or if you're just heading straight to Majuro. Oftentimes, breaking the trip up makes sense, gives you a bit of a rest as well. But you are entering a lot of convergence zone activity up there, and it's tiresome. We're dealing with cloud and squalls all the time, and therefore the stops sometimes are useful. Okay, I'm done, and I'll pass it over to the boss here, and she'll pick up what's going on. You probably wonder why we do this, folks. Well, the fact is, I wear a hearing aid, and if I were to wear the hearing aid when my lovely bride here talks, it sounds like World War III in my ears. The RF from the radio, we're putting out 400 watts. I feel like I'm getting electrocuted. So I don't wear it, so I have a hard time hearing it. So that's part of the reason.
All right, I'm not sure how many people have found us on 8779, but we'll take any questions shortly. Just a little bit more news. I forgot to tell you that Gone with the Wind, they're about a degree latitude further back from Pilgrim, and they have got southeast 15, so they're romping along at 9 knots. They're 3125 and 17608. So they're doing well. And for those that know Lanny and Ginger on Swift Shore, they're up in the Marshalls, and they're heading north, probably to Likia, and then going to Kwajalein for Christmas. So that's a bit of news. And David on Anahata is safely in Opua, so that's good. And that's about it. We don't know where Ichiban is because he doesn't have a radio, but hopefully he's doing all right. There's certainly on this particular passage nothing evil. So is there anybody with anything that needs to be responded to or talked about? Please call. Boy, that radar is pretty consistent this morning. It's still on 8752. All right, well, we probably have lost a lot of people who can't remember that we are on 8779 if we get radar on 8752. So we'll leave the frequency and be back again tomorrow. It sure doesn't look good, but then there's always December, isn't there? November is often a pretty mucky month, but and I can't. Oh, that's what I meant to tell you. For those that are heading north, and if you are going into Tuvalu, do check in. They are absolutely anal. You could lose your boat if you don't check in. You have to check in to the official check-in spot, and you have to do it thoroughly and properly. So even if you do want to stop there and you just think you're going to stop any old place on your way through, do not do that. It's there have been some very serious cases in the past. Sorry about that, but if you do want to stop, you'll just do it in the official spot. All right, anybody with anything? Just do another pause. Any relays from anybody? Okay, we'll leave you with it, and we will be back again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody. We're out of here.
Very good.
Hydra. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Thank you.